Hey everyone, it's Jacqueline at Pixie Dust PhD. Recently, Disney updated its Disability Access Service web pages, both for Walt Disney World and Disneyland Resort. We'll go over this revised process in this video, as well as highlight some key changes, some things that have remained the same, and some questions we all still have. There's a lot of detail and nuance in this video. If you just want the highlight, bottom line up front is essentially it's not really too different, but there are some differences that may prove meaningful. If you find this video helpful, informative, or entertaining in any way, I would super appreciate it if you hit that thumbs up button to like the video. You can also subscribe to the channel. This is totally free to you, and then you can ring the bell icon if you want to receive a notification whenever I post new videos. And if you want to support me outside of YouTube, you can find me over on Ko-fi. Big thanks to Judy, who is a monthly supporter of the channel. Plus, Ko-fi is going to tend to get information-dense content quite a bit faster than I'm able to upload to YouTube, so if you want to know what's going on right away, definitely follow me over on there. Before we really get started, I have a couple of quick disclaimers. I am not a lawyer. I'm also not a medical doctor. Plus, I do not currently, nor have I ever worked for the Disney Corporation, so I'm not privy to any of those inside discussions or decision-making bodies. I do have work experience in policy writing, implementation, and interpretation, so I feel pretty comfortable in that space. And as many of you know, I am a PhD-trained researcher, so I'm quite comfortable going through details and synthesizing all that information. Let's get into it. Changes were made to the Disability Access Service web pages, both for Disneyland Resort and Walt Disney World Resort in April of 2024. Notably, changes will not actually take effect until May 20th in Walt Disney World and June 18th in Disneyland. If you've used the Disability Access Service before, then the overview is largely the same. You do need to register for the service, and then you'll be able to use same-day return times when you're in the park. Then you can enjoy. One of the primary updates they made was updating the language around the intended user. Disability Access Service is intended to accommodate a small percentage of guests who, due to a developmental disability like autism or similar, are unable to wait in a conventional queue for an extended period of time. This is actually not all that different from the old language. Both the old language and this updated new language highlight the fact that the service is meant to help guests who, due to a disability, have an issue waiting in conventional queues. In my opinion, the biggest part of the new language is the fact that there is a clear example here. Disney is now very clearly pointing out developmental disabilities, such as autism and similar, as the key target audience for Disability Access Service. A lot of the internet has latched onto this language and is doing their own interpretation. I want to be very clear that at this point in time, in April of 2024, we do not know how this policy will be implemented, so any interpretation you're seeing on the internet is at best a guess. Having worked in the policy space before, in my opinion, they are inserting this literally as an example and not as a be-all end-all. You can just as easily read the sentence without that part contained between the commas. That is how compound sentences work. Then it reads just like the old policy, indicating that DOS is for guests who, due to a disability, can't wait in queues. There are many categories of disabilities beyond developmental disabilities that may make it difficult for you to stand in a queue. My personal opinion, and again, this is just an opinion, I may end up being wrong in a month's time, is that the policy gives them enough wiggle room to still accommodate folks with disabilities that are not developmental. I will note that I think it's a safe assumption that mobility-only disabilities will still not be eligible for DOS. This has also been true in the past. However, previously, the Disability Access Service website was extremely clear that mobility-only disabilities were not eligible for DOS. I believe that verbiage has been taken away, but I see no reason why that would not still be the policy. If you want a more thorough explanation on that topic, check out my earlier Disability Access Service video where we talk a little bit more about mobility-only disabilities and why they are not eligible for DOS. Personally, I am still very optimistic that a wide range of disabilities will be accommodated through the DOS program. My read of this language is not you must have a developmental disability to qualify for DOS. My read is that, hey, that's an example of the target user for DOS, but there may be folks outside of that still qualify for DOS. Again, I could totally be wrong and only time will tell, but the same is true for everyone claiming you must have autism to qualify for DOS now. Their reading may also be wrong, and we might find that out in a month. The main point here being that before we get clarification about how this policy will actually be implemented, just tread carefully. I don't think anything is 100% accurate right now. With the intended users out of the way, let's then talk about registration. For both Disneyland Resort and Walt Disney World Resort, you'll be able to speak with a cast member via live video chat as soon as 30 days in advance of your park visit to help determine eligibility. Do note that this live chat is only available in English. If you're pretty sure that you qualify and you would benefit from the use of DOS, I would highly recommend you try to register in advance online. Doing this early will just save you a little bit of time and hassle in the parks. Plus then you can go on vacation knowing it's all already taken care of. That being said, if you don't pre-enroll in the month leading up to your vacation, there will still be some amount of day of support. Disneyland Resort specifically is going to have an on-site accessibility window. Right now at Walt Disney World, things are a little bit more vague. There will no longer be in-person DOS registration at Guest Relations. Currently, if you go to any of the Walt Disney World theme parks, you can go to Guest Relations and say you would like to register for DOS, and they will help you out with that. That's going to stop beginning on May 20th. However, personally, I am pretty confident that you will still be able to enroll day of if you were not able to do that leading up to your vacation. Exactly how that will work at Walt Disney World is unclear. At Disneyland, it will be at these accessibility service windows. At Disney World, I'm guessing you're still just going to have to use the online chat. It is very clear that you will not be able to register in person day of at guest relations anymore, but they may be setting up some alternate methods. For example, when comparing the Disneyland and Disney World versions of their DOS websites, typically where Disneyland is referring to these accessibility service windows, Disney World's website is referring to the guest experiences teams, or those folks with the blue umbrellas. Disneyland's resort has the advantage of being quite compact, so they can put an accessibility services window outside of theme park gates that could service everyone going to both Disneyland Park and DCA. Walt Disney World is, of course, much more spread out. So perhaps some of these responsibilities will fall to the guest experiences team. Maybe they're setting up kiosks, maybe there's something else. But I can pretty much guarantee to you that there will still be some amount of day of support in case you did not register in advance or didn't even know you could. With that being said, I am still pretty certain it won't look like how it looks now. You won't go to guest relations and speak with a guest relations cast member to do that. But maybe you go to guest relations and say, hey, we're experiencing this challenge. Is there any way you can help out? Maybe you didn't know about DOS. And then they say, oh, we have this program called DOS. Here, let me shuffle you over to an iPad to go ahead and do this live video chat or similar. For liability reasons alone, I feel pretty strongly that Disney World is not going to just straight up reject anyone trying to register for DOS day of. Instead, I think one of the main purposes of this change is to free up some time of the guest relations cast members. By consolidating the DOS registration workstream to that live video chat, then all of the folks at guest relations who normally have to deal with a deluge of people trying to get registered for DOS are freed up to do the other aspects of their jobs. I also hope this means that for those guest relations cast members, they have a little bit of stress removed from their jobs and probably some less nasty interactions. DOS gets really heated in person sometimes, so frankly, I'm happy to see that taken out of their hands. Overall, I've just seen a lot of people saying you absolutely have to pre-enroll for DOS if you're going to Disney World or you'll be denied, and I just firmly believe that will not be true. I don't think it's clear exactly how it will go day of, but there will be some amount of in-person support. If day of you go ask a guest relations cast members how you can get help with DOS, they are not just gonna shut you down and say, nope, too bad, you didn't do it in advance. Like, that's a lawsuit waiting to happen. Another interesting change to the registration process is incorporating health professionals when needed. Scott Gustin reported that Disney is working with Inspire Health Alliance to help determine eligibility when those cast members need help. Process around this is still entirely vague. I think what we know for sure is your first stop will be speaking with a Disney cast member through that live video chat. And then for any variety of reason that we do not yet know, that cast member may refer you on to Inspire Health Alliance. I think it's a fairly safe assumption that Disney partnering with a health organization is going to help with liability. And again, I really hope this helps reduce stress of cast members like trying to make these judgment calls that they probably don't feel comfortable making. This might also be a method to help curb some abuse of the DOS program, so AKA folks lying to get DOS. I have no idea if this is true. This is just a scenario that I think could happen and make some amount of logical sense. Let's say Aunt Sally is talking to a Disney cast member trying to register her kid for DOS and says, hey, my kid has autism. Maybe at that point, Disney cast members could be instructed to pass them off to Inspire Health Alliance. Then Inspire Health Alliance evaluates that claim. Who knows if that is a video chat discussion? Who knows if that's just send me a letter of diagnosis or a screenshot from an electronic health record? But anyway, there might be some amount of cooperation between the cast members and Inspire Health Alliance to curb people lying about developmental disabilities or other disabilities. That's pure speculation. We have no idea how this will go down, but I think that might make sense. And one broad category where I hope this partnership really is utilized is for guests with complex situations. Some people have disabilities that are quite easy to explain in like a pretty clear yes or no. Others, it's a little more nuanced. For example, maybe you have a bone or cartilage condition where moving feels fine, but like standing or sitting still may cause you a lot of pain. That sounds like a mobility disability on the surface, and to some extent it is, but just renting a wheelchair to sit in the lines isn't going to help you because, well, that's going to cause you a lot of pain. It would be much better for you to do your weight virtually and be able to just kind of walk around, do laps, do whatever you need to do to take care of yourself. And that's just one example. There are plenty of others that require some amount of nuance where perhaps it would be better for the cast members to pass that off to a health professional, both for their own sanity and mental wellness and also for liability for the company. Personally, I think it's very interesting that Disney's going with this hybrid model, where you start with a Disney cast member and then maybe you're referred to a health professional. Previously, it's just all been Disney cast members, and there are other systems, including the one at Disneyland Paris, where it's pretty much just all health professionals. Having nothing to do with the company, I of course do not know the real reason for this, but they did choose it, which to me is at least a signal that they thought about this, and this is what they think is the best path forward. Now, is that the best for liability reasons? Is that the best for operations and workflow reasons? Is that the best for the guest experience? Only time will tell. Once you have successfully registered for the Disability Access Program, there are terms and conditions around the valid period. DOS is valid for the length of ticket or up to 120 days, whichever is shorter. And after that period of time, you would need to re-enroll. Now for Walt Disney World, this is a little bit annoying because there are some inconsistencies on the website. In the Step 1 Register dropdown for Walt Disney World's DOS website, it says it's just valid for 120 days. However, in the FAQ portion of that same Disney World DOS website, then it does say the length of ticket or up to 120 days. I find it frustrating that there clearly weren't thorough copy edits done to a new policy, but I think it's a pretty safe assumption that they will adopt the length of ticket or 120 days, whichever is shorter, and not just a blanket 120 days for Walt Disney World. To me, it just doesn't really make sense to have different policies for Disney World and Disneyland when the heart of the reasoning is the same. And ultimately, what this policy is signaling is that if you are a day guest with a day ticket, so you bought a 4-day park ticket or a 7-day park ticket, then your DOS eligibility will be valid through the end of the length of your ticket. Versus if you're an annual pass holder, you could be coming quite frequently, your DOS eligibility will last for 120 days. And just like in the current system, so this is not a change, I'm just reiterating it for everybody's knowledge, DOS is only valid at the location with which it was issued. So if you registered for DOS at Disney World, that does not automatically port over to Disneyland, you would then still have to register at Disneyland. If you do choose to pre-enroll for DOS before your vacation and you're deemed eligible, the next step you're offered is what's called DOS Advance. Currently, this allows you to book 2 attraction return windows for your theme park visit days. So for anyone familiar with the old FastPass Plus system, it's pretty similar to that. Interestingly, there is no mention of DOS Advance on either the Disneyland or Walt Disney World DOS websites. Scott Gustin reported that DOS Advance will no longer be a default selection for anyone who's deemed eligible for DOS. My personal interpretation of this is that DOS Advance is pretty much going away for the average everyday DOS user. I would not expect to have this as an offering for most folks. There probably are very, very limited circumstances of folks who are registered for DOS where the same-day return time just doesn't work for them, and so DOS Advance will be the only way for them to enjoy attractions, and then I think exceptions will be made for them essentially. But this is very much a switch from the default of everyone gets DOS Advance to that's going away, and very rarely exceptions might be made to do DOS Advance for select guests. And as you are registering for the Disability Access Service Program, there is still a big disclaimer about false statements. So if you are found to have lied essentially to gain access to DOS, then you can be permanently barred, and whatever sort of ticket product you bought, whether that's an annual pass or a day ticket, is going to be forfeited and there will be no refunds given. I've also seen a lot of chatter about this on the internet. It is not new language. That has been there for at least a few years. It was in my old video, which I filmed, I think 2 years ago now. So I don't know exactly how recently this was put into the terms and conditions, but it is not part of this current April 2024 update. All right, so after you've successfully registered for DOS, then it is time to go to the theme parks. Once you have entered a theme park, you can then request a return time to an attraction. At Disney World, you will primarily be doing this through the My Disney Experience app. However, if you do require additional assistance with getting return times, the website does state very clearly that you can go to Guest Relations or a Guest Experiences team member. At Disneyland, it's much the same, except for you will be using the Disneyland app instead of My Disney Experience. And if you need help, that will be at Guest Relations or an Accessibility Services window. At both resorts, same-day return times for DOS are going to move forward as you are probably used to. The wait time you're quoted is going to be comparable to the posted standby wait. You will have to wait that amount of time virtually, but then after that, you can redeem it whenever until the attraction or the park closes. So it's not a specific return window, you do your wait and then you can go back whenever you're able. And a travel party can only hold 1 active DOS return time at a time. Additionally, kind of the entire point of the program is that the person that needs the accommodation will be experiencing it. So any member of the party can book the return window, but the person who is the DOS eligible guest needs to go redeem that and experience the attraction with the rest of their party. As a very clear example, let's say we have a travel party with 2 parents and 2 children. One of the kids is DOS eligible, no one else in the party is. Any one of those 4 travel party members can go ahead and book the return time using their app or by speaking to a cast member. For this example, let's say parent number 1 books a return time for the Tower of Terror for the whole group. Now, if it turns out that the DOS eligible guest, the child in this case, does not want to do that, it's not like the other 3 can redeem DOS without the DOS eligible guest for Tower of Terror. Again, this is not a new policy, this is how the current system works, just reiterating for clarity. Something that is new is the party size. The maximum party size is now stated as 4 guests total, so the DOS eligible guests plus 3. I believe in the past it was 6 instead of 4. Now, I'm very confident that exceptions will be made for immediate family members. So if you're a single parent and you have 4 kids, I'm pretty sure Disney is not going to make you have 1 kid sit out every time. If you will need an exception to the party size, speak with a cast member about this. Once you've obtained a same-day return time, you are then essentially just doing your virtual wait. And while you're doing that virtual wait, per the policy, you can do basically whatever you want. You can do character meet and greets, you can watch shows, parades, you can go enjoy other attractions, you can eat, you can shop, you can rest, whatever you see fit. I do not know why the exact language about this can't be the same between Disneyland and Disney World other than replacing the resort name to be accurate, but the heart of what is listed here between both resorts is totally the same. Then once your virtual wait is over, you will just redeem your return time. You can do that right away, or again, you can wait as long as you want through either when that attraction or when the park closes. After you've redeemed your first same-day return time, you are able to make another. Something that I'm fairly certain is new though is there is this 10-minute cooldown period. Currently, there is no such waiting period, and once you have redeemed that return time, you are able to make another one on the app right away. For some attractions, redeeming that return time is right at the entrance. Others, there's going to be a midpoint check. So for example, I'm fairly certain a ride like Living with the Land, you would just redeem your return time right at the entrance, and then currently, right now, you'd be able to make another return time in the app right away. A ride like Frozen Ever After though, where there's a merge point, you're going to tap in at the entrance and then you're going to tap in somewhere a little bit later in the queue. You would have to wait until that second tap in then to currently right now make another return time in the app. But according to this policy, once you tap, instead of making a new return time right away, there would be a 10-minute period where you would have to wait it out. Now, there sometimes is a difference between the language in a policy and the enforcement of that policy or the implementation of that policy, so only time will tell if this 10-minute cooldown period does actually apply. However, I think from the company's standpoint, it makes sense though. Because once you tap in and redeem your return time, you do have to make your way through the queue and then ride the attraction. That does take some amount of time. In the current system right now, you can be waiting in a virtual queue for another attraction before you have even experienced the attraction that you're redeeming. So my guess is the thought behind this 10-minute cooldown period is like, okay, well, make sure they actually ride the attraction and then they can get in another virtual queue. So in summary, here's what we know. You are going to register for Disability Access Service through a live video chat. You'll start by speaking with a Disney cast member, then after that you may be referred to Inspire Health Alliance. What they might ask from you, we do not know. This certainly is going to reduce the number of in-person DOS registrations happening at guest relations in both parks. I think that was probably a key goal here. DOS Advanced, the program that lets you pre-select 2 rides per park day, is no longer going to be a default for every DOS guest. The default DOS party size is now 4 guests total, so the DOS eligible guests plus 3. And at least in writing, there will be a 10-minute cooldown for same-day return time selections. That being said, there is still a ton we don't know. I could make probably a 2-hour-long video talking about this, but we'll try to move through it quickly. We do not know how eligibility is going to be interpreted and implemented. Like we spoke about earlier, they have now named developmental disabilities like autism and similar in the language. It's not clear what's going to happen to everybody else who has a disability that's not developmental and not mobility only. Scott Gustin reported that there's going to be a new return to queue process to help guests who would need to leave a queue and re-enter. We don't know anything about this system. I personally believe the intent is to take folks who are currently eligible for DOS and provide this separate accommodation, this return to queue process, sort of getting them out of the DOS user pool. So for example, if you have gastrointestinal issues that currently qualify you for DOS, it's likely not about the queue itself and the environment, it's about the fact that you need to be able to leave and come back as your body tells you you need to. It's totally possible that the return to queue process would accommodate someone with that type of disability. And for those folks with a disability that would be accommodated by this return to queue process, I assume if they try to register for DOS, then those DOS live video chat cast members would triage them, let them know about the return to queue process. If there's anything that needs to be check marked or activated in their account to make that happen, maybe that happens. But anyway, 1, we don't really know anything about the return to queue process, but 2, I think it's very clear and obvious that they are trying to reduce the DOS user pool. We also really know nothing about this Inspire Health Alliance partnership. We don't know at all how these health professionals are going to be used. If you are passed off to them, are you going to speak to a human being? Is it going to be a chatbot? Are you just going to submit documentation? Like, what will go on? No one knows. And whether or not you're speaking to a human being or there's chats or emails, whatever format it will be, what would they ask for and what would be required? Unfortunately, I don't know that this will ever be fully written out in a policy, so we may just have to wait and see by example. Another big question I have that I doubt we'll ever really get an answer to is how are these policy changes helping to reduce abuse of the system? We're very well aware that there are third parties who run tours, which by the way are illegal, by using DOS. How are these policies helping to reduce those folks? And then also anecdotally, I think everybody is aware of the standard sort of single travel party that lies to get DOS. Again, how are these policy changes helping reduce that? In my mind, also some of these changes are going to go toward reducing the time you spend in the lightning lane. Exactly how is a bit unclear, but here are my best guesses. Reducing the default DOS party size down to 4 is probably going to reduce the amount of people going through the Lightning Lane as DOS guests. And as we just discussed, the new return to queue process holds potential to accommodate guests who are currently using DOS and in the Lightning Lane, but do that in a different way, which would get them out of DOS and the Lightning Lane and into the standby line. And if there are ways they are implementing the policy to reduce abuse, of course that is going to help. Like I speculated earlier, maybe it is a shuffling to Inspire Health Alliance to verify claims. Who knows? But any amount of reducing abuse is definitely going to help with the Lightning Lane. Overall, the general process appears to be largely the same. You will need to register, and step 1 of that is talking to a cast member. Not every single type of disability is going to qualify. Once you successfully register, then you use same-day return times to enjoy attractions. But in that larger framework where it feels like mostly things are staying the same, there is a lot of nuance to these changes. There's a lot of detail in the interpretation and implementation of the policy that we simply don't know yet. And my personal guess is that we will not be seeing meaningful updates to this policy. We're not going to get like a step-by-step process of exactly what goes on from Disney, maybe ever. In my experience in policy, if you are leaving implementation steps out, that is to give yourself wiggle room to grow and change as needed. So essentially, come this summer, we are going to have to learn from each other as a community. And while this is going on, I ask that everyone be super kind to the cast members dealing with this. Typically, the frontline cast members you're speaking are not making the decisions. They probably don't know any more than you or I do at this point. They're there to do their job, and most of them are there because they want to make things magical for you, but a lot is way outside of their power, so just be kind to cast members, try to speak to them with patience, try to understand that they only know so much. For now, it is simply wait and see, but as we do learn more, be sure to stay tuned to my Ko-fi. If my assumption is right and we are just going to have to learn by example from each other and Disney's not going to give us anything more, I'm a little hesitant to make a whole video just because then every single case is a one-off incident. There's not an overarching process or policy. There's not facts to report on. But as we do learn more from folks in the community about the revised process, I certainly don't want to discount their experiences. In aggregate, in synthesizing a lot of that information, I think it could be very helpful. But again, because it's not fact, I'm a little hesitant to make a video and put it on the channel, but I will do my best to share things I feel comfortable sharing over on my Ko-fi. In the meantime, if you have any questions, leave those in the comments down below and I will do my best to help you out. Again, reminder, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a medical doctor, and I don't work for Disney. Anything about implementation right now is just a big old question mark for everybody. And thanks so much to everyone who's liked the video and subscribed to the channel. I super appreciate your support. If you are a current DOS user and you have a trip planned to the parks soon after the implementation of these new revised policies, my heart goes out to you. I can't imagine how stressful that must be. But I'm wishing you all the best, and for now I'm choosing to remain optimistic that Disney is still going to find a way to accommodate a vast majority of the folks who need it. Thanks again for being here. May the rest of your day be magical, and we'll see you real soon at Pixie Dust PhD.